Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Adam Burke from BangTheBook.com coming to you with our Friday Football Frenzy video. Wild Card Weekend is here. Also, the National Championship game coming up on Monday. So I'll talk about the 4 NFL playoff matchups and give you some thoughts on the National Championship game here. And, of course, I'll revisit that on Monday in our Monday mashup video. Over at BangTheBook.com, great stuff going on. Good daily article from Parker Michaels on the NHL. Unfortunately, Kyle Hunter a bit under the weather here today, so no college basketball piece, but hopefully he'll be back with that daily picks piece tomorrow. Great NFL content over there to get you ready for this weekend. Corey Papps just put together his Market Watch article. That's posted over there at the website. Danny Vorgs' updated NFL power ratings up there as well, including Alan Moody's updated NFL power ratings. We'll have picks of the weekend, best bets, betting trends, all kinds of good stuff here for the Wild Card Weekend in the NFL playoffs. If you missed the Friday edition of Bang the Book Radio, plenty of time to catch that. Talk college basketball and the National Championship with Rolf Michaels from WagerTalk.com. Then also got the odds report with Brent from DSI Sportsbook. Sharp action out there for all 4 of these playoff games, as well as Monday's National Championship game. So you can catch that on Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and also right here on our YouTube channel. All right, let's take a look at the Friday Football Frenzy here. We'll go through my thoughts on all 4 games for the Wild Card Weekend here. We'll start with the first one. Game 101-102 is Indianapolis and Houston. Colts versus Texans. I'm calling this the AFC South Championship game. The Texans did win the division, do have home field here for this one, but it's been a very steady stream of Colts money, as I mentioned on Wednesday, and as I wrote about on Monday in my game preview for this one. This line was going to move down. There was no question about that. Now we wait and see if sharp money comes back in on Houston. But Indianapolis, a 1-point dog now. Total on this game of 48. Indianapolis with wins in 9 of their last 10 games. Houston comes into the playoffs with a plus 13 turnover margin. And in fact, over their last 10 games, they've only turned the football over 5 times. And they've only had 3 games in the last 10 where they've turned the football over. They had 3 turnovers in one game, and then 1 in a couple of games. So Houston taking great care of the football. Indianapolis moving the football and getting some great defensive play from a young, fast, athletic, improving defense. Should be a real good game here in this one. These two teams did meet twice in the regular season. Indianapolis 437 yards passing and 386 yards passing in those 2 games. So Andrew Luck having a lot of success there. However, even though the Colts allowed the fewest sacks this year with 18, 6 of them in the 2 games against Houston. So very big injury news yesterday and today that Ryan Kelly is off of the injury report for the Colts. He will be able to go in this game. That is a big boost for this offensive line. Even though he doesn't directly block J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney, still making the line calls, still helps the guards provide a little bit of help for the tackles. So Ryan Kelly being back, a big deal here in this one. Red zone efficiency could wind up deciding this game. Indianapolis, 68.8% on offense in the red zone, scoring touchdowns. 53.5% on defense, allowing touchdowns. So they were strong in both areas there. Houston, on the other hand, just 50% of their red zone trips converted into touchdowns. And on defense, 29 of 41 red zone trips for the opposition going into the end zone. 70.7%, one of the worst marks in the NFL. So if this is a game where the teams do move the football, and I do expect that, I do like the over a little bit in this game, then you've got some red zone efficiency concerns for Houston, where Indianapolis much better in that department. So still like Indianapolis at the +1, the 2.5 obviously if you get some sort of weird finish. You always like to have the best number whenever possible, but do like Indianapolis a little bit here, and at +1, you might as well just go and take the money line because now there's no equity in teasing the Colts up, as I talked about earlier on in the week. Let's go to the late game here, 103-104, Seattle taking on Dallas. Dallas a 2-point favorite, total of 43 for this game. We've seen this line bounce around. Some places opened 3, came down to -1. Now it's back up to -2. The total also getting batted around a little bit. 41.5 up to 43. Some places even touched 44. Now we're coming back down a little bit there. So a lot of movement, and it looks like a sharp divide on this game with some sharp people liking Seattle early in the week. Some sharp people maybe coming back in on Dallas here in the middle of the week. This game probably comes down to running the football. Seattle 5th in the NFL, 4.8 yards per carry. Dallas obviously very, very good running the football year in and year out, as we know. The big difference here, Dallas allowed just 3.8 yards per carry on the season. Seattle allowed 4.9 yards per carry on the year. So will Dallas be able to stop this Seattle rushing attack? Will Dallas force Russell Wilson to have to throw the football? Will Seattle be able to force Dak Prescott to throw the football? And if so, Dak Prescott coming off of a great confidence-building game in Week 17 against the Giants. Dallas's pass offense so much better now with Amari Cooper. You really have to wonder here, if Dallas has to throw the football, not as big of a deal as it would have been earlier on in the season. For Seattle, Russ doesn't have a whole lot of guys to throw to out there with Doug Baldwin hurt, with Tyler Lockett very inconsistent. And of course, Russell Wilson's been sacked a lot this year too. So very interesting game for a variety of different reasons. I think Seattle has a pretty noticeable coaching advantage in this game with Pete Carroll over Jason Garrett. But really for me, this game comes down to third down and who has the most success there. Seattle 17th on offense and third down, but they were 5th on defense. So their defense got off the field in those third down situations. Dallas's defense, for as good as they were this season, 27th in third down defense, but Dallas was 10th when it came to the offensive side of things. So third down, I think, really does define this game, especially with both teams wanting to run the football in early down situations. I don't know which way to go with this game, quite frankly. I would expect maybe some points. I do like over 43 just a little bit. Probably would lean to the Dallas side, but of the 4 wildcard games here, this is the one I have the least confident opinion from a side and total standpoint. We'll go to Sunday here, game 105-106. Chargers and the Ravens. Ravens a 3-point favorite now market-wide. Total of 41.5 for this game. Rematch of the Week 16 matchup. Baltimore was in a bad spot on the road, short week, cross-country travel out to Los Angeles, and they won that game 22-10 as a 4-point underdog. The Chargers could not do anything on offense in that game. 2 critical turnovers, a strip 6, and a short field that led to a field goal. So 10 points off the 3 Chargers turnovers in that game there for the Ravens. But there were some silver linings for the Chargers here. They held Lamar Jackson to 39 yards rushing on 13 carries. The problem is they gave up over 200 passing yards on just 12 completions, including the big Mark Andrews touchdown catch and run. So can the Chargers move the ball on offense? That's the big question here, because I think defensively, outside of the blown coverage, they played really well against Lamar Jackson. They're seeing him for a second time. I think Gus Bradley is a good defensive coordinator and a bad head coach. So I think the Chargers may be a little bit better positioned in this game, especially with Kenny Wisenhunt having a second crack at the Baltimore defense. And also the first time these two teams played, Wisenhunt, his name was being tossed about a little bit for the Georgia Tech vacancy. Maybe that took his focus a little bit away from that game. Chargers 9-1 straight up on the road this year, including a London game. 7-3 against the spread. So they truly were road warriors. Got to think, even with the cross-country trip, it doesn't bother them. Lots of confidence on the road. The only concern, of course, would be a slow start with that 10 a.m. body clock kickoff. But after all, it is the playoffs here. One other thing worth mentioning is I mentioned a lot of stuff with the red zone here in this video so far. Lamar Jackson, just 3.1 yards per carry on 34 red zone rushes. Only 9 of 21 passing inside the 20. Chargers 5th in red zone defense in terms of touchdown percentage allowed. That could end up being the difference in this one. So do like the underdog here a little bit in the Chargers. Like the +3 now. That's the market-wide number. Also, you could sprinkle on the money line for this one. And the fact that they're the first team to see Lamar Jackson and this Baltimore offense twice. Do like under 41 a little bit in this matchup. One more game here to talk about. That is the late game on Sunday afternoon, 107-108. Philadelphia and Chicago. The Bears a 6.5-point favorite. Total on this game of 41. Lots of familiarity here between these two head coaches. Doug Peterson, of course, the former offensive coordinator in Kansas City for Andy Reid. Matt Nagy, the quarterback's coach under Doug Peterson. Then the offensive coordinator when Peterson left. Now he's got his own team there with Chicago. So a lot of familiarity between these two guys. They've worked together. They obviously have similar offensive philosophies. So that's something that could keep the total on this game pretty low. Total 41, as I mentioned. For Nick Foles here, obviously injected some new life into the Eagles offense, but 87 of 113 passing, 962 yards, 6-3 touchdown interception ratio. But he faced the Rams, who aren't that great of a defense, the Texans, who have had problems defending the pass this year, as we mentioned with regards to Andrew Luck and the Colts, and then the Redskins, who were just banged up, ready to end the season. This is a big step up in class here for Nick Foles and this Eagles offense. You certainly have to wonder how they adjust and adapt to that, because much faster Chicago defense, much better pass rush than at least two of those teams there. The Texans, of course, have a pretty good pass rush, but much different type of animal here for the Eagles in this one. The Eagles have allowed 5.8 yards per play this season, but they lead the NFL in opponents' touchdown percentage in the red zone, just 44.6%. So they bent a lot this year, but they didn't break because they played so well in the red zone. Will they be able to have that same success here against the Chicago Bears team that's 6th on offense in touchdown percentage in the red zone and 5th on defense? I'm not entirely sure about that. But you do have the been there, done that factor. The Bears, obviously, a lot of new guys in the playoffs. They haven't been in the playoffs since 2011. The Eagles won the Super Bowl last year. So kind of wonder how that factors into the equation with the biggest game of Mitch Trubisky's career, maybe the biggest game of Khalil Mack's career, and several other guys there for the Chicago Bears. So you sort of wonder how nerves play a factor in this one. I do still like the Bears here. I trust their defense a lot. I think Nick Foles does have trouble here, and of course, he's already banged up, as we know. But I like the under 41 here with so much familiarity between these two head coaches. National championship game, Clemson 5.5 point favorite in this one, Alabama 5.5 point favorite, total in the 59 range. Starting to come around on Alabama for this game a little bit, due in large part to the fact that Trevor Lawrence just isn't a very good runner. When you look at the two games where Alabama had problems against Clemson, those were against Deshaun Watson. Maybe Trevor Lawrence is a better thrower than Deshaun Watson, but Watson was a better runner. So I think that's something that Clemson really has to force the issue with here, running the football with Trevor Lawrence. I'll be looking for that from a player props standpoint. Rush attempts over, rushing yards over. Should be a couple of very low numbers there because Lawrence on the season high of 9 carries, season high in yardage of 42 yards. I would expect those to be two very low numbers, and I do think some zone read type of stuff or some scramble type of stuff, something that Clemson needs to work in here for the national championship game. So I'll have more on that on Monday in the Monday mashup, but for now, looking at maybe playing Alabama if this number keeps coming down. Would love to get Alabama -4 if we get to that point. And then also looking at Trevor Lawrence rushing props to go along with some of the other things that I'll write about here this weekend over at BangTheBook.com. Glad to have you with us here for these videos as we round out another week. I'll be back on Sunday morning. I'll take a look at the lines for Sunday's games and also update the national championship game at that point in time. I'm Adam Burke from BangTheBook.com.